Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and we are cruising through the album Different World by Uriah Heep, and today we are covering the title track, Different World. Now, just thinking about the album cover, you know, the wash of colors, the interesting shape of the jewel in the middle and the marks on it and everything, I don't know if this song will relate to that per se, but I'm curious to see where it goes. So let's just find out, why don't we? Here is Different World. Wow, this has a really nice feeling to it, doesn't it? It's just the kind of song so far. I mean, we're 24 seconds in, but it just kind of reminds me of being out on the open road, like just being on the highway, no cars in sight, just kind of taking in the mountains or the trees or the fields, or if you live in Arizona, the brown, just whatever it is in your surroundings. But definitely makes me just want to jump in the car, drop the windows down a little bit, even if it's cold out, and just feel that air and enjoy the scenery. One thing I liked right off the bat in this section was that the vocals didn't just come in. There was an actual change in music to bring the vocals in. And I thought that was nice, because when you're hearing the opening, sometimes you can anticipate what the rhythm of the vocals will be, how they'll sound with that. But when it goes to something different, you have no idea what to expect. And that really kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit as a listener. I really like that. I also like the fact that it's just a change. It's a cool place for one, and I like they did that. Vocals again are just slightly too quiet for my taste, but you can still hear him come through, and you can hear the gentleness in Bernie's voice on this one. You can hear some really nice keyboards being played by Phil as well, really just filling out the wide scope of the audio in the song. Some very nice playing by Mick. I'm hearing a couple different guitar tracks in there. Of course, nice solid bass and drums. The drums are really cutting through. The bass is a little bit buried, but not in a way that you don't feel it. I mean, it doesn't necessarily draw your focus, but if it wasn't there, you would definitely notice. I really like this. That was a really nice break in the action there with that fill that Mick put in. Didn't expect that extra measure would go in there, but that sounded really good. That was a nice surprise. And then that transition with that really strong Hammond sound was just beautiful. But this is great. I love the backing vocals. I love the use of the layering of the lead vocal with the backing vocal. It's a really nice combination. It's early for me. And but also just the way that Bernie is singing so gently, and he sings along with himself very well, especially in this song. It's really nice that he can bring that grit and that edge and that passion, but it's also really nice that he has the ability to lay back and do something a little more gently. And I don't want to say campfire, because that doesn't really seem the right word, but just, this is one of those songs where I could picture people sitting on logs around a fire and just kind of, rocking back and forth, singing a song together, maybe a couple of guys with an acoustic guitar or one of those backpackers, and just enjoying the starry sky. Normally in a part like this, and especially with the talent in this band, you would expect somebody to jump in and fill in this part, do a solo, create a new riff, something. But I really like the fact that they just dialed it down and laid back and didn't go for anything fancy here. I think that's a really nice lead into the next part. I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. That is such a powerful phrase. People tend to think, it seems, that if you're by yourself, that you're alone. And I'm one to describe this more as if you are comfortable with being by yourself, if you are not somebody who needs to be entertained by another person all the time, you're not lonely. In fact, this was a line that was uttered by Robert De Niro in the movie Heat. And the prospective girlfriend he was talking to was talking about how lonely his life on the road as a salesman must be, although we all know he was lying. That's not what he did at all. But he said that same thing. He goes, I am alone, but I am not lonely. I think he was, though, in his case. I think he needed something more in his life, but not everyone does. So I love that they added that line to the song, because I think that's a very key phrase to remember, especially in times like these. Well, this was an especially interesting section because I immediately thought it was going to be a guitar solo, but it kind of, again, laid back. It took a step back, set the table for what the meal was going to be, which was really cool. A little couple throw-ins there from different people, but it really came together and then led into a very nice solo. Love those parts too. Really just fit that I don't need to be validated feel for me. And it's weird to say that with a bunch of musical notes, and maybe it's just the way that I feel music. But I think that the solo was very lyrical in its own way and really just kind of enhanced the story from almost like if somebody's explaining something and, your friend sitting next to you doesn't feel like your audience is understanding, they might chime in with another perspective on that subject so that the audience will understand. And I mean, it could be one person or two people as an audience. I just mean whoever's receiving the information. And I kind of feel like that's how this was. I feel like, Mick is sitting to the side listening to Bernie tell the story. And he's like, maybe they're not getting it. So maybe I can add some perspective to it. And he tells the story from his perspective. And I don't normally feel that way with a guitar solo. I mean, the guitar solo is really supposed to be an extension of the lyrics. Something to give a lyrical break, yet entertain, not overshadow or dominate necessarily, but just kind of, all right, you had your turn. I'm going to take mine and fill that same position that the vocalist does. But in this case, I really feel like, I don't think they're getting you, buddy. Let me give this a shot. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is about it. I can't explain the science sort of behind that. But just based on what that solo made me feel, that's what I'm getting out of it. really loving the transitions here into, the repeat, but it really made me realize something. I've talked before about these songs that feel like an ongoing party that I don't want to end. There's something about some songs when they're doing a repeat of the chorus over and over. And sometimes it's because the guitar player will start playing something that you're like, hey, wait, that's interesting. Don't fade out. Well, you just faded out. And you feel like you're missing out on something. But there's other songs that just kind of feel like you want them to go on and on and on because they just have a certain feeling to them. And so I call those, like the party shouldn't end songs. I changed the name of that several times, but that's kind of the general idea of it, right? Like you just want it to keep going and going, even though it's really just repeating. And I think a part of what creates that for me is these really great transitions, because when it's a great transition, it's not necessarily that you're really excited to hear the chorus for the sixth time. It's that you're kind of anxious to see how they do the next transition back into the chorus again. And I think a transition like this one that we just heard is a perfect example of that. That's a great drum fill, great lead in for a repeat. And I think that's a mystery solved. See, what's interesting now is that they're even dropping out some of the vocals to let that drum roll shine a little bit more. It doesn't really come in super early, but it's a bit longer of a roll. So they're kind of saying, okay, I'm just going to come in and make my point, and then I'll back out. You come in and do your thing. And it really works for a song like this. I like these longer transitions. I like the fills and the build up to it. It's got such a good feeling in it for me. Wow, that was a very powerful song. And I love the last line, I disappear into the night, and then it just trails off. I thought that was so perfect. And I want to point out, too, that when I say, they're backing off the vocals to give more room for the drums, I can't say definitively that that was the intention. All I can say is, as a result, that's what I'm hearing. I wasn't a writer or producer on the song. I was not there for any of this. So I can only say, based on what I'm hearing, here is the result of what they were doing, whether that was a happy byproduct of just the natural course of writing, or whether it was something strategic, or whether they recorded something and the producer muted it in the final mix. I have no idea. What I can tell you is that's what I'm hearing. And I think that makes for especially interesting parts of the song. Now, the ending, I could start hearing the bass come in a little bit because it started doing some stuff that was off of the main rhythms. We were hearing some different sounds there. Also, just beautiful keyboards playing along behind all of this. Just a really strong song. And I really dug it. There were some just nice, subtle things that kept it from being a straightforward song, and a great vocal. Again, some really powerful lyrics in here. And I'm not even a lyric guy, but I did pick up on some of that. And just some really, really amazing work on this song. So I would say a heavy thumbs up for me for the song Different World off the album Different World. And I think that this kind of, it's one of those things that you can say, well, it fits the cover artwork, or is it that you're making it fit the cover artwork, right? So I talked about this in the beginning of the show, talked about the textures. The song does sound a little bit different. It's not just that mainstream, we're going to change here, we're going to change there. They threw in a couple of extra interesting measures. They delayed a solo. There was some cool things going on in here. They dropped out vocals, put in more drums. I mean, there's definitely some stuff that made it different. And I'm thinking about this person who's saying, you know what, I'm fine being alone. I know that sucks for you because you want to be with me, and I get that and I appreciate it, but kind of a loner here. And it makes me think of that jewel in the middle of the album cover saying, you're kind of on your own in this world. From what we're seeing of the world, we're not seeing like you and then 30 more of you in the background. Like there's only this one jewel. So I kind of feel like the song actually does represent the album title very well. But do I really think that, or is that just something that my brain's fitting together to make it work? I don't know. It seems reasonable to me, though. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. Tell me on Twitter. That'd probably be the best place. Tell me on Twitter. Let's see what you think. But in the meantime, guys, it is Friday. We're out of here for the week. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. We will be back on Monday for another episode of the show. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!